Something like that.
I brought
And
you
then-
that just for your own info.
James Rada. Why do I know that name? That's a good list you got going here.
Yeah.
And still on Tuesdays?
We had our first last night.
I got to.
And I brought this for you to look at. It's pretty cool. This is as old as I am. It's a centennial.
Oh,
one.
neat.
We had the reenactment in Chambersburg of the raid.
Oh, cool.
So I have that one. I have the 1863 one of those. I don't have the one for the burning. It's a little history, and it has the reenactors and the bands and the whole program of the event.
Yeah. Immediately, Stuart sent orders to round up his men, and the following statement was issued. Soldiers, you are about to engage in an enterprise which, to ensure success, imperatively demands at your hands coolness, decision, and bravery, implicit obedience, and orders, and blah, blah, blah. Destination, extent of the expedition had better be kept to myself. I like that. Yeah, all right, good. So I don't know the first thing about this.
Don't you?
So I'm going to learn it as you tell it.
This isn't. This isn't on YouTube.
Yes. Well, it's on Patreon. It's not live on YouTube. It's only for
Right.
And it's a work day, so maybe 5 people might watch it. Well, watch it live. But, you know, then they'll get home.
Now?
Yes. Yeah, my whole system crapped out right as I finished the anniversary episodes. Like my computer fried. So I had to get all new everything. And I was almost dead in the water, but a very kind patron unwittingly stepped in just in the nick of time.
Unwittingly?
Unwittingly, just not knowing that that everything had fried. Yeah, we went to. Trying to see if anybody's on there watching so we could say hi to them, but the internet's not coming on, so I'll use my phone. Baby Otis is welcome to my life. Is there no internet on that either? Okay, we're going to restart the computer. Well, in case anybody is watching, hello. And hope you're doing well. And if you're not, well, that's sad. Sorry to hear that. If you are, that is great. Just bear with us 1 second. How was your summer? Did you get a lot of tours this year? Was it up, down?
I did what I could handle.
Yeah. What is that? Was it more or less than last year?
About the same. I
What do you-
don't do a whole lot.
What do you think of the numbers that the park released about visitation and everything?
I don't know. I don't know what it's all based on.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it can only be based on their gathering from guides and buses and stuff. I mean, you have no idea how many people are here throughout the day if they don't
right.
go
Well,
to
and
the visitor center or.
that's the thing. Yeah, going to the visitor center. I don't know though if it's anything to be proud of, considering we used to get 2 million a year here.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's dropped substantially. But I mean, maybe it's finally dropped back to normal.
What was it?
Yeah, like prior to the
40
movie. Yeah. But I mean, it took a long time too for it to go down like that.
I think, like anything, you got to take that with a grain of salt because there's a lot of variables you don't know.
Yeah. All right. So now I got some internet going there. Let's go on. See what is happening. Okay, good. There we are live. All right, good. Sorry, everybody, that you had to wait for my computer to restart so I could check the internet. And we do have people there. We've got Eric, we've got Dustin, and we've got Harold. And if anybody's watching over on Patreon and commenting there, click on the video, the title of the video, and go over to YouTube so we can see. I'm going to be monitoring the comments on YouTube because it comes in differently on Patreon. Oh, there's Harry. Hi, Harry. How you doing? All right. So I'm going to close Patreon. And there we go. Okay. So we're doing Stuart's Wild Ride, 1862. And should be good. Oh, so here's what I'll do, folks. I mean, I don't know. You guys might have to dip out. But I can open the phone lines if you want to call in. But if I open them, even if you have a question you already know the answer to, it'll help the audience that listens later. So call in, ask the question. I didn't do any preparation for this, so I really don't know anything about the 1862 raid except that it happened in 1862. And he didn't get as far as Gettysburg. He got to what, like Cashtown and cut south? Is that what he did? And it was during the no, that one. And it was during the yes. Sorry. The Antietam campaign, correct?
Yes.
All right. And that's all I know. I don't know any of the details of it.
So I can make anything up.
So if you guys well, you know what? I'm not going to wait for you to answer. I'm just going to do it and waste another $35. Shows, host show, start show. Now I got to call. My doorknob keeps on turning. There must be spooks around my bed.
Thank you for calling Call-In Studios host and call screener line. Please enter your show or meeting number and press pound.
Enter your 6-digit PIN number. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the Call-In Studio web interface.
Okay, so there. If you want to call in, there's the number. I'll keep an eye on it every once in a while. Don't get impatient. Hang on the line. Too loud?
Yeah.
Okay. How about that? Is that better?
That's better.
Okay. I forget what I was saying already. But yes, do that. Exactly. Okay, so we're about ready to start JEB Stuart's Wild Ride. Let's go to my compressor here. There we go. There we go. Oops. Nope. Just do this. All right. There we are. Ah, that's what I'm looking for. Okay. All right. You ready, Trace?
Sure.
All right. Here we go. Wrong button.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios, you're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, patrons. Welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg. And today, we are talking to our friend Tracy Baer, licensed battlefield guide extraordinaire here at Gettysburg. And also, you're a certified guide down at Brandy Station there.
Mm-hmm.
So, how's that going? You've been doing tours there lately?
Not a lot.
No?
I have.
A couple?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful. If you ever get a chance to go down there, folks, you can get Tracy, our buddy Six Questions Lens is a guide, Chris Army. Who else from here is a guide down there? That's about it, right?
Jason
Hamlin, that's right. All right, so today we're talking about JEB Stuart's ride of 1862, his raid into Pennsylvania. And when I started doing the show, I don't know, maybe it was a year or two into doing the show when I first learned that he had done that. It's not something you hear about very often unless you're really digging into it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not, like, everybody knows about his riding around up north, getting his name in the papers ride in 1863.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if you're a student of Antietam, you would know about his 1862 ride, but I'm not. So I didn't ever hear of this. And
his first ride, too.
It's
the Chickahominy raid.
Right, down at on the peninsula.
That's right.
Right. So and that's probably his most famous, I would say, right?
Yeah.
Because it was his most successful.
It was big, too.
Yeah. So 1862, what's going on? When is this? September, right?
So let's set the stage by going back prior to Antietam.
Okay.
What are the armies doing? Where are they? What the heck's going on? And, of course, the Peninsula Campaign has ended. General John Pope has been given command of an army in Virginia for the north. Lee's army is moving north and will front Pope at what would turn out to be the disastrous, for the Union anyway, the north, the Second Battle of Manassas.
Mm-hmm.
Lincoln will recall McClellan from the peninsula to come up, and the Army of the Potomac will assimilate Pope's army. McClellan is now in charge of everything again. And Lee, at this point, is making his plans to move north towards Maryland. And as he does so, Governor Andrew Curtin of Pennsylvania is getting a little concerned. He's receiving reports in Harrisburg of Lee's army moving north. Of course, nobody knows plans, routes, that sort of thing. But Andrew Curtin is convinced that Pennsylvania is certainly the gateway to the north, and if there is a main or a very direct route to get into the state, avoiding a lot of the population like around the eastern side and Philadelphia area, it's south central. It is the Cumberland Valley, right up the Valley Turnpike. And Pennsylvania at that time is essentially very lightly defended.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Curtin will call for a state of emergency in Pennsylvania and call for 10,000 emergency militia. So these men began to report to Harrisburg and eventually are sent to Chambersburg with their squirrel guns and their pitchforks, and very little discipline. At the same time, as Lee is making his way north, Curtin realizes he needs somebody to lead these men. Well, who can he get? Well, Andrew Curtin, being the Pennsylvania's first Republican governor, is good friends with Abraham Lincoln. They've worked together. They know one another. There's also an individual in Chambersburg, Alexander Kelly McClure, who knows both of them and has worked with both of them, Lincoln and Curtin. And Curtin is able to pull some strings and get a well-known officer away from McClellan to lead these men, and that, of course, is General John Fulton Reynolds. So Reynolds will make his way to Chambersburg to lead these men, and he is less than thrilled with the discipline of these men. And you can tell he's a bit frustrated with this assignment. He would rather be in the heat of it.
Sure.
So Reynolds is going to spend minimal time in the Chambersburg area trying to train and organize these men. He's going to leave that up to somebody else, and he and his staff will go across the Mason-Dixon line to Maryland to keep an eye on things. At this time, things are gearing up. Lee has moved into Maryland. Of course, by this time, McClellan has been handed the lost orders, moving slowly on that. And by the 14th, the Battle of South Mountain is going to be kicking off. That same day, Jackson has already taken Harper's Ferry. Okay, so he's busy paroling officers and men at Harper's Ferry. Not all of the Union garrison there had been captured. Some of the men escaped, and there is a small detachment of cavalry under Colonel Benjamin Franklin Davis, Grimes Davis, if you know Brandy Station. He's one of the first Union officers to die in that battle. But Davis is making his way with his small band of merry men north, crossing the Potomac River at Williamsport, and on their way up the Valley Turnpike towards Hagerstown, they stumble across a wagon train. And this is General James Longstreet's reserve ammunition wagon train. And I have seen various numbers of wagons. The one I've seen the most is 60, so that's what I go with, about 60, give or take, wagons loaded with ammunition, lightly guarded because it's behind the Confederate lines.
Right.
And Jackson's busy, Harper's Ferry, Lee's busy at the passes as McClellan attempts to push through. So Davis is able to take these wagons with his men and make their way through Hagerstown north, across the Mason-Dixon line to Chambersburg. What is in Chambersburg? Well, 3 blocks north of the town square is the Cumberland Valley Railroad depot.
Oh, yes.
Coming down from Harrisburg. And that depot has been used to transport men and military supplies so far in the war. And these wagons are dropped there. They will be put in some of the privately owned freight forwarding warehouses around the depot until something can be decided to do with it. Okay, so they're placed, the ammunition is placed in the warehouses. Now Grimes Davis is not burdened with this slow-moving wagon train, and he and his men continue to safety in the north. All right. By this time, the Battle of South Mountain is over. The Army of the Potomac crosses the mountain, and they engage Lee's army at the Battle of Antietam. That bloody day-long event that will eventually force Lee to recross the Potomac into northern Virginia, and the armies are now essentially stagnant, watching one another for a while. And it's of course, during the post-battle period that Lincoln is getting continually more frustrated with McClellan's inactivity, his less than ambitious efforts to move and try to continue to fight and hopefully defeat Lee. And of course, we know that Lincoln also would visit McClellan at Antietam. And by the end of September, early October, Governor Curtin is now relieved that Lee's army had been stopped, and he declares the state of emergency to be over, And these men that he had gathered are now disbanded. They can go back to their farms throughout the state, wherever they came from.
Okay.
Leaving Chambersburg and the Cumberland Valley, for all intents and purposes, really undefended again. There is a home guard in Chambersburg. Not many men, 50, 75, 100 maybe, under Captain John Jeffries. But again, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? What are they going to do? So Lee's army is really trying to rebound from this terrific loss at Antietam. But he also needs to keep an eye on McClellan to see what the heck he's doing. Yeah. You know, what's Little Mac going to do? And in order to try to get a sense of what's going on, Lee is going to call Stuart, JEB Stuart, to Army headquarters and give him orders to proceed to Chambersburg. Okay. Stuart's men are primarily around a farm or an estate south of Martinsburg, known as the Bower. It's an estate or a farm owned by Stephen Dandridge. And Stuart is being Stuart. You know, he's entertaining the local women and you know, having dances and things like that. And he's summoned to Army headquarters. And General Lee is going to outline his plans. And you touched on this reading that book a little earlier. But I have a portion of the report, the official orders from the OR.
Okay.
And this is, may I?
Go ahead, please.
Okay. So this is Lee's orders to Stuart, Volume 19, Part 2. Cross the Potomac.
Wait, I have to say, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So I'm watching the video, and I think you just like gestured like this. Not on purpose, but you did something like this. Mm-hmm. And every time you do that, for some reason, this new program I have, when the camera sees that, it does a little emoji of a thumbs down on the screen. So I just saw.
Is this better?
Yeah, no, that's better. Doing the thumbs up. Okay. Now. Yeah, give that time. Go ahead.
All right. So Lee's orders to Stuart. And this is probably October 8th or 9th. I'm not entirely sure. Cross the Potomac, proceed to the rear of Chambersburg, which would be the northeast, and endeavor to destroy the railroad bridge over the branch of the Conacajig Creek. Any other damage you can inflict upon the enemy, you will execute. And you are desired to give all information of the position, force, and probable intent of the Army which you can. Should you meet with citizens of Pennsylvania holding state or government offices, bring them with you, that they may be used as hostages or means of exchange. Such persons will, of course, be treated with all respect and consideration that circumstances will permit. Should it be in your power to supply yourselves with horses, you are authorized to do so. So this is just a portion of that, but in this, he's outlining to Stuart the goals, and there's a few of them. The first and foremost job that he is entrusted to Stuart is go to Scotland, Pennsylvania, about 4 miles northeast of Chambersburg, which would be to where Lee's located in the rear of Chambersburg, and burn that bridge, destroy that bridge. And this is a bridge over the Conacajig Creek, and if you're not familiar with it, today's bridge is a large concrete structure crossing the creek and a road. It's very impressive. I think this bridge that's there today was built in like 1933, and it's probably the fourth bridge. Okay. Something like that. But at the time, the bridge was very vital. I mean, that is the Cumberland Valley Railroad going into Chambersburg right there. So Lee wants to disrupt the supplies coming from Harrisburg to Chambersburg that will then be forwarded to McClellan in and around Hagerstown, Shepherdstown, even as far as Frederick. All right. So this is going to be Lee's effort to try to stop the flow of material and supplies to McClellan in order to get him to try to move, to do something. Okay. Lee has also given orders to Stuart to try to resupply not just himself, but as many horses as he can get for the Army. And as we understand now, he was also tasked with taking hostages that he could use for exchange of Southern-held men. And certainly by learning the whereabouts and the condition that he can of McClellan's army, and successfully making this raid, which was never intended to be a raid of occupation. This is a hit and run thing.
Right.
Keep moving, right? Very short and fast moving. By successfully doing this, then he can build the morale of his own army.
How many, does Stuart have his full complement with him, or is it just in part?
So on the morning of October 9th, Stuart gathers his men near Darksville, and it will be 3 brigades, and it won't even be the entire number of men from each brigade.
Okay.
These are going to be hand-selected, numbering about 1,800. And, you know, when I read reports of this, I see it just throws back into my mind Will Smith and Men in Black. The best of the best of the best. Okay. Remember they were sitting in those egg sheep? Yeah. The best of the best of the. So it's 600 men, the best of the best from each of the brigades, from Hampton, Lee, and Jones.
Okay.
So they're not taking everyone. It's just the men that they can rely on the most.
All right.
And along with that, they will be supported by 4 guns under Major Pelham, John Pelham. So we have about 1,800 men plus the 4 guns and the men associated with that. And Stuart would address these men thusly: "You are about to engage in an enterprise which, to ensure success, imperatively demands at your hands coolness, decision, and bravery, implicit obedience to orders without question or cavil."
Oh,
is that right?
Or cavil?
Yeah. "And the strictest sobriety on the march and in bivouac."
Boring.
Okay. Yeah, right. This ain't a party. This isn't a tailgate, guys.
Yeah.
So the destination and extent of this expedition had better be kept to myself than known to you. The orders which are hereby published for your government are absolutely necessary and must be rigidly enforced. Suffice it to say that with the hearty cooperation of officers and men, I have not a doubt of the success, a success that will reflect credit in the highest degree upon your arms. So he didn't want word getting out where he was going or what he was going to do, but he wanted the best men available that he had to do this.
Right.
And again, supposed to be fast moving. So that same day, he is going to start out, and they're going to make their way towards the Potomac River, crossing at McCoy's Ford, and continue from there. They're going to arrive at the Potomac River when it's still somewhat dark, to try to avoid detection. Across the river in Maryland on Fairview Heights, the Union has a signal station. There's a small picket guard on the Maryland side of the river. So he will cross the river very quickly with a small force, overwhelm these pickets, and continue to the National Turnpike at Cool Spring.
Sounds like he would be detected.
It would be. And the thing
so
is,
what's the point of leaving some darkness? Just go. You're going to fight anyway.
You're going to fight anyway, but you don't want to draw any unnecessary attention to yourself.
Okay.
This is supposed to be fast moving, so he doesn't want to have to stop and fight.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
If he doesn't have to.
Real quick, where you said he's leaving from Darksville?
Yeah.
Where is that?
That's south of Martinsburg.
Oh, okay. So
he'll make his way. West Virginia now.
Yeah.
So he'll make his way sort of to the northwest, where he crosses and goes to Clear Spring.
Okay. Got it.
Goes to Clear Spring. And there are, in researching this, I find that there are quite a few instances where he just misses Union patrols and Union troops. He reaches the National Pike at Clear Spring probably less than an hour after a Union brigade has passed through to the west.
Okay.
So he's just missed them.
Getting lucky.
He is. And he sends another small force on a very quick raid to the top of Fairview Mountain in order to overwhelm and take this signal station, which he does, but a couple of the men escape. So they are now aware that there's Confederates in Maryland. They've just crossed the river. Where they're going, what their objective is, nobody knows yet. But they're going to keep an eye on them. Stuart did make a point to his men that plundering was prohibited. And the reason they're taking a small force is to be faster moving. But these forces are not going to stay with the main body the entire trip. A third of each brigade, so a third of each 600 men, so 200 men, total of 6, are detailed as soon as they get out of Maryland into Pennsylvania. They're detailed to start looking for horses and looking for other.
So they're going to spread out.
Yeah, they're going to start spreading out. Not so far as you're going to endanger yourself, but spread out and start looking for horses. Again, taking or destroying private property in Maryland was prohibited.
Okay.
Okay. Pennsylvania, as soon as you cross the Mason-Dixon line.
Different story.
Fair game. Yeah.
So, okay. So what are I mean, that's got to be terrifying for the people out in that area when they get into Pennsylvania. The Confederates spreading out, looking for horses and everything.
It would be. And as you can imagine, these men or the civilians are going to start trying to inform anyone they can.
Right.
And it's not just them, because a small detachment of the 12th Illinois Cavalry were on picket duty and spotted this band, these raiders moving north, and they're going to watch them for a while, see them moving up towards Mercersburg. And on the way, they crossed the river on the 10th of October. They overran the pickets. Okay, so now they're making their way up through what is today in the area of Blair's Valley, through Clay Lick. At Clay Lick, they take the postmaster, and they continue to Mercersburg, and it's raining. It's raining pretty much all day on the 10th, so it's not as fast as they can move. And in Mercersburg, they're going to encounter the civilians there who really, they had gotten wind of Stuart's men or of Confederates coming north. But this is an ongoing thing throughout the war. You know, Confederates are in Pennsylvania. Well, do you believe it? Do you not? You know, is it crying wolf?
Right.
So some of them are going to believe it, some don't. Well, now they're there. Now they're in Mercersburg. They're going into a number of the stores. They're taking food. They're taking clothing. There's an account that I saw where some of the men were wearing as many as 3 hats at a time.
So it's like when whites Comanches come through here. Yeah.
They're taking what they can. But they also start catching or capturing prisoners, hostages in Mercersburg. They take 6 men from Mercersburg. They've already gotten the one from Clay Lick. They're going to take another man when they reach St. Thomas. And I have a list of those men. They arrived Mercersburg October 10th. Okay, so they capture in Mercersburg Perry Rice, who is a local attorney, Daniel Schaefer, a Mr. Louderbaugh, John McDowell, George Rupley, and George Steiger. And I'm good friends with the great-great-grandson of John McDowell. So they capture William Connor in St. Thomas after they leave Mercersburg. They're going to make their way continued up to St. Thomas, which is on the Pittsburgh Turnpike, which is modern Route 30. So somewhere along the way, Steiger, Rupley, McDowell, Louderbaugh, and Wenger either escaped or they were released or exchanged. Schaefer and Connor were later exchanged. But the 3 of them, Schaefer, Connor, and Perry Rice, had been taken to Richmond, and they were held in Libby. Okay? Schaefer and Connor were later exchanged. Perry Rice would die in Libby prison. So you have a civilian from Mercersburg who dies in Libby. Yeah.
Oh. Now, and they weren't just random civilians off the street, though.
One was a postmaster, civilians of high standing.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily government officials. Postmaster was, but someone that would hold hopefully a little clout in trying to get Southern detainees released.
Got it. Okay. Yep.
So that same day, 10/10, Stuart's already sending advanced troops out as spies, as scouts. And we know this because a local merchant and store owner in Chambersburg by the name of Jacob Hoke.
Oh, yes.
Okay, Jacob Hoke owns a dry goods store 2 buildings from the courthouse just north of the town square. And somewhere around 4:30 p.m. on the 10th, a man dressed in a blue overcoat, clearly a soldier. He's got a saber dangling. He's got revolvers, but he's wearing a blue overcoat. Enters Jacob Hoke's store, and he begins to look around. What do you got here? Right? Well, he goes up to the counter and talks to Jacob Hoke and says, Mr. Hoke, well, he didn't call him by name, but he says, I'm here for a pair of socks. Really? Really? A pair of socks? Okay. So Hoke gets him a pair of socks. He pays for it with a silver coin.
Okay.
And Hoke, what can I learn here?
Mm-hmm.
He asked the man, are you a Union soldier? And the man didn't lie. He says, no, I'm a Virginia man.
Huh.
Straight from the sod.
Okay.
He turns around and leaves, and Hoke can see that, he's visibly looking around.
Yeah,
And
case in
Hoke,
the joint.
He knows from that this is a spy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So who knows how many more individuals like this Stuart sent in advance. But we know that Stuart is kind of casing the area. Like you said, he's casing the joint. And it all also becomes very much aware to the civilians that Stuart seems to know where he's going. And we know now that he is a guide who had one time, he's been with Stuart for some time now, but at one time lived in Waynesboro.
Oh, okay.
A man by the name of Hugh Logan
Okay.
is now working as a guide while in Franklin County for Stuart.
So he didn't go off and join the Army of Northern Virginia. It's like Stuart employs him when he comes in.
No, it's my understanding he has been with Stuart for some time.
Okay.
So he must be a soldier.
Okay. So Jacob Hoke, you mentioned him, and he's important in the Gettysburg story because we have a whole book, The Great Invasion, and everything like that. Tell us a little bit about him, because he's just a store owner. He's a clerk, right? Or store owner.
Yeah, his store
Merchant.
is on, that's right. His store is on the first floor. He lives on the second floor.
Right.
And he is right next door to Franklin Hall, which is really like the town hall.
Okay.
And on the other side of that is the courthouse. So he's right in the thick of it. And in fact, when Lee enters Chambersburg from the south in 1863, Hoke writes that he is sitting in his upstairs window watching these men pour into town. And he sees the meeting then on June 26th between A.P. Hill and Lee that takes place on the square of Chambersburg. But Hoke would then later write a pretty accurate and detailed account of the Great Invasion in the 1863 Gettysburg campaign.
Is he sending information back to Harrisburg?
Yeah.
He is. Okay.
Yeah, he will, along with Alexander Kelly McClure and a few other people, Judge Kimmel, a few other people in town will be sending couriers or using the telegraph as long as it's up and running, which won't be too long now.
Yeah.
But they are sending information which is now putting Governor Kirtner back into a state of concern.
Right.
But Hoke will then, he also writes a book called Reminiscences about, I can't remember the exact title, events that occurred in the Civil War in and about Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, something like that.
Okay.
Which is where some of this information comes from. And he clearly states in the preface of that book that, he's going by memory. This is sometime after the war. And he is relying on friends' accounts. He's relying on newspaper accounts. And he states, much of what we knew and what we recorded has been lost forever because of the fire of 1864 when McCausland burned the town. So he's clearly, weaving that into the story. I'm doing the best I can to remember here.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, but he does a pretty good job.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course he loses everything 2 years later after this Stuart's raid. He loses everything in the fire.
So the now Curtin is another character in this story, and the impression I get of Curtin, and I don't know if people smarter than I agree with me here, but what little I've read of him, and it's really just how whenever he pops into the Gettysburg story, he seems like, not that there isn't cause for an alarm, but he seems like he's a little bit of a panicker. Is that accurate, or is it the way anybody should act in an invasion?
Well, I'm certain that you get a little anxious about things like that. And I've never read any type of biography on Andrew Curtin, so I don't know what to make of him. But certainly he is concerned. Okay. He's concerned for the state. Well, he's concerned for the welfare of the civilians. And, he's unfortunately left high and dry by the Army in certain. Certainly, General Couch would be head of the Department of the Susquehanna in 1863, but he's really stripped of a lot of his men. So I'm sure Curtin is feeling somewhat frustrated by not having men available.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Why are you thinking to have, good troops up here in Pennsylvania when the war's in Virginia?
Right.
Just like the girl in the movie Gettysburg says, I thought the war was in Virginia.
Thought it was in Virginia.
So did everybody else, girlie. All right, what else?
So after this encounter with the spy by Jacob Hoke, other civilians would arrive at his store. He must have been a pretty prominent man in the community.
Popular guy.
Yeah. So people are going to come there and inform him that the rebels are approaching. Well, and Hoke is now thinking, well, yeah, this could be. So he will start, like many other merchants, they're trying, and property owners, they're trying to take valuables out of their stores, out of their homes, and hide them. They're trying to secret their horses away somewhere, trying to get them out of harm's way. Should this be real? Should this prove that the Confederates are actually showing up? So with this announcement, the man I mentioned earlier, Captain John Jeffries of the Home Guard, is going to assemble in the town square, and they're going to ride out to the west of the town. And they get out Market Street, which is now Lincoln Way West, and you can see Confederates beginning to show up in mass on New England Hill, which is just on the outskirts of town to the west.
Okay.
Some of Stuart's force began arriving around 8 p.m. on the 10th. And remember, it's been raining all day, so what is visibility like? Now it's 8 o'clock. It's getting dark, dusky out. So we're really not clear. The civilians probably aren't clear how many men, what the heck's going on. But Stuart is going to send some men under a flag of truce towards Jeffries. They are going to be escorted into the town. They are demanding to speak with the government officials in the town, the town leaders. So Jeffries is going to take them to Judge Kimmel's office, which is near the courthouse, somewhere behind, I believe, Hoke's store, because he is going to slip out the back of his house and go meet with Kimmel as well. But there are other leaders of the town who are assembling in Kimmel's office at this time. Captain Jeffries realizes probably discretion is a better part of valor. He understands his small force is not going to be doing anything against this larger force that he has already laid eyes on. So he's going to disband his men. They're going to hide their horses, their weapons, and get out of, if they had uniforms, get them out, just to protect themselves. But the Confederates will now meet in Judge Kimmel's office, laying out the demands that Stuart has issued for an unconditional surrender of the town. Also present are Alexander Kelly McClure and Thomas B. Kennedy, who would rise to become the president of the Cumberland Valley Railroad, and he is living
President
in
Kennedy.
Yeah, right. Thomas Kennedy. So there are some high-standing individuals there. And Kimmel, part of me is thinking, is he just reassuring himself or these other individuals, or is he buying time for people? He says, well, what you say, if that's true, okay, all well and good, but I'd like to see for myself. So Kimmel asks, be taken to talk to the higher ranking officers.
So, something that's just kind of while you're talking about this, it sounds to me like the people of Chambersburg. I mean, this is the first time they're raided during the war.
First of three.
First of three, right? Okay. So it seems like they almost intuitively know what to do, and they can sense the danger coming. Hoke there's this guy, he's a little weird. He comes in, he's looking for socks, and he says, I'm not a Union soldier, right? And everybody else seems to kind of like, I don't know, I get the impression that Chambersburg's got it a little more together. A year almost later, in Gettysburg, everybody is the way I picture things in my head, I always picture things like a movie, right? Like a scene in a movie. And it's not necessarily an accurate depiction. It's more of just like the essence of what I'm gleaning from the story.
Yeah.
So in the Gettysburg situation, and I that rumor of the gangs coming from they just sacked Hanover and they're going to come over to Hanover or to Gettysburg now. I think that was in June of 61 or maybe April of 61. Right after they send the Home Guard away, then there's rumor that Hanover just sacked and now they're coming for us.
Okay.
And I picture a combination of Benny Hill and a Mel Brooks movie where like just the goofy, like Blazing Saddles, where the goofy townspeople are just running randomly in circles and the film is sped up and the Benny Hill wacky sax is playing in the background, right? Whereas in Chambersburg, when I'm listening to you tell this story, I'm picturing the scene to be, like music like dun 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 dun, just like that, like like very serious, heavy spy movie type of movie.
Clint Eastwood has been there, and he's painted all the buildings red, and he's waiting for the Confederates to show up.
Right. It's what is that? High Plains Drifter?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's Blazing Saddles versus High Plains Drifter. That's
so I don't know how accurate that is, but you have to remember all along the southern border of Pennsylvania throughout the war, I mean, these panics and these alerts have been going up continually.
right, but it sounds to me that Chambersburg is more serious about it.
Well, and I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but that's what I think the people are preparing for it, and they want to be assured that something's going to happen before they get everybody up in a tizzy.
I mean,
but people are already removing things. They're trying to take things away.
Right.
And it's not just the first time.
and to be fair, they do that in Gettysburg too.
Yeah.
But I think it's Michael Jacobs. Who's the one that, there's a famous quote from him, and now, of course, I can't remember it. But he's basically saying that, he's commenting on how I don't think these people realize just how serious this is. Some people don't seem to think that this is real.
Well, that's the boy crying wolf. It's happened so many
yeah.
times. Is it real? Well,
Right.
it
Do we
wasn't.
have accounts of that in Chambersburg?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
People aren't believing it there.
Yeah.
But they're right off of 81.
That's right.
I mean, how could they not think that, they would be more of a target, right?
That's right.
I can excuse Gettysburg because you got to get on business 15
That's right.
to come up here, right? And who wants to get off the highway and get on a small back road
When you have the interstate.
the interstate?
That's right.
So it makes more sense.
It
But
makes more sense.
I don't know. It's just funny the way I picture the two.
But take a look then at the following year when all but Stuart. I mean, this year Stuart is the only Confederate force in Chambersburg. The next year, everybody but Stuart is in Franklin County and Chambersburg, and it's a big difference then. I mean, you have the mass exodus of the panic of June. What was it, June 16th or whatever, where everybody is sweeping up the valley to Harrisburg for protection.
Right.
I think that's what it was called, the Panic of June 16th, something like that.
That's
So,
that's also Matt Mistay, and so in 1978, that's what they called it when I was born.
oh, is that right?
Yeah, the Panic of June 16th.
June 16th.
The whole
Okay.
hospital went nuts.
They evacuated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, regardless, Judge Kimmel, Thomas Kennedy, and A.K. McClure, are going to make their way, escorted by this Confederate guard, to the west side of town, where they meet Wade Hampton.
Okay.
JEB Stuart will be there as well. They're going to reiterate, hey, you need to surrender the town. Pelham is already placing his 4 guns in position to open fire if necessary. Judge Kimmel is remaining cool. I think another testament to what you just said, he's remaining cool about this because he's actually going to negotiate a little bit with Stuart.
Huh.
What about personal property? We don't want that touched. Okay, so
Yeah.
Stuart agrees. Okay, horses, we're not horse thieves, but horses are free game. We need them. Your army needs them. We're going to take them if we find them. That sort of thing. Food, we're going to take. Clothing, we're going to take. Personal property, private property, we're not going to touch them. We're not going to hurt the civilians.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I believe for a number of years, I was always questioning. Stuart's already taken 9 people. Now he's met with a judge, a state senator, and someone high up in the Cumberland Valley Railroad, and they're not taking him hostage.
Right.
I think maybe Kimmel's negotiations kind of exempted them.
Okay.
We're not going to touch you because you're civilians.
Interesting. Okay.
That's just my take.
Sure.
Okay, but it could be,
Well.
So something else interesting. I mentioned Hugh Logan, the scout,
Right.
the guide for Stuart. He knew A.K. McClure because McClure, being an attorney and a newspaper man, he had done some legal work for Logan pre-war. Logan understood and remembered that. And Logan apparently must have, at some time during this raid, spoken with McClure saying, just stay on the low. We don't want you taken. If you are taken, I'll do whatever is in my means to have you released. So here's a guy scouting for Stuart that's also saying, I'm going to try to take care of you because you helped me out before the war.
Okay. All right.
All right, so okay, so Stuart would agree to these very basic terms. Those 3 men would return back into the square, the town, and try to disperse the civilians who by now are gathering. So it's after 8 p.m., okay? It's getting dark, still raining. Stuart's forces are now going to invest the town. They're going to move into the town. They're going. Mr. Messersmith, the clerk at the bank, has already removed all the money. He's taken it out. He's heard of this.
Man.
So he's gotten rid of all that. But Stuart and Hampton are going to sign the register at the Franklin Hotel. I'd love to know where that is.
Yeah. We don't know where that is?
Well, I don't know. It may have been lost in the fire, too.
Yeah. Okay.
So they're going to spend the night there. Many of Stuart's men will be around town. They're I'm going to say breaking into, but they're entering the bakeries and the stores looking for food, looking for clothing, because that's things that aren't covered by that surrender, agreement, right? And a large number, and I don't know how many exactly, of soldiers make their way up to Norland, which is about a half a mile north of Chambersburg, and that's McClure's 60-acre estate.
Okay.
And in reading McClure's reminiscences of this, it would appear they didn't know who he was, but he must have been well-to-do to have such a nice house. They're going to take his horses. He is going to get on the good side of them, McClure is, and he's going to invite them in. He's going to give them coffee. He's going to give them some food. Mrs. McClure will be making food for them. He shows them where the firewood is. They start to use the firewood. Then they start stripping his fences to make, and they're apparently up all night just chit-chatting. McClure and all these men, these officers, continue to come. They feed them. And as the sun comes up on the 11th of October, these men are now recalled back to the center of town. So these men are not just, they're out, I guess, acting as a Northern Guard because they are guarding the Valley Turnpike.
Okay.
Norland sat right on the Valley Turnpike. So they're now back in the center of town. By this time, Stuart is up. Things are going on. All right. They make their way, and I should have mentioned, and I didn't, as soon as they get into town, they start cutting the telegraph lines. Okay.
Smart.
Yeah. So they've already done that. Lee's main order to Stuart: destroy that bridge in Scotland. Destroy that bridge. And I don't know if you've ever seen that image of it.
I have not.
There's an illustration of it. I don't know where it is. I'm organized. Here.
Just like me.
Yeah, here it is.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Okay.
So that's the burning by Jenkins cavalry prior to Gettysburg. Okay. Stuart is going to give orders to some of William Grumble Jones' brigade to go to Scotland and destroy that bridge. That was Lee's main goal: destroy that bridge. So these men are making their way north, and I don't know why it would have been difficult to find. Just follow the railroad track.
You would think it would. Yeah,
Right?
Right.
So somewhere between Chambersburg and Scotland, they come across a group of civilians, and these quick-thinking Franklin Countyans, what are you doing? Well, and they told them, we're going to destroy this bridge. We're going to burn the bridge. And they must have said, we're going to burn the bridge, because these civilians are going, and I've read several different accounts in different places of this. They say, well, good luck with that. It's made out of iron and stone. So they never go to see for themselves.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Okay.
They took their word for it.
They took their word for it. We don't have explosives. We can't just,
blow it up.
Right.
Yeah.
So they returned to Chambersburg without laying eyes on the bridge itself.
And they tell Stuart this? We didn't do it because civilians told us it was made of stone and iron?
Well, he must have had to tell Stuart something. A lot of information I get from Henry McClellan, the general's cousin, who Henry McClellan is a major, and he's a staff officer for Stuart, right?
Right.
Henry McClellan, oddly, doesn't mention that. He doesn't bring that into his recounting of Stuart's raid. He brings a lot of information in, but what he doesn't say is why they didn't blow up the bridge or destroy the bridge. He kind of leaves that out.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that coincidence?
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
all right.
But regardless, the main goal of going to Chambersburg was not accomplished.
Yeah.
They didn't even go up to see it.
Right.
Okay. Jenkins will take care of that the following year. But the rest of Stuart's raiders, they are still in and around Chambersburg looking for supplies, looking for horses. They're at the railroad depot, and they're tearing up the tracks. They burn the engine house. They burn the turntables. They're disabling everything they can find there. So here, Matt, there's another image I printed out. I'm not sure. I think this is Harper's Weekly and not Frank Leslie's Illustrated. But that is the destruction of the warehouses and the rail yard in Chambersburg by Stuart's raiders. In one of the warehouses, one of the freight forwarding, the privately owned businesses, they discover, here's another one, they discover uniforms earmarked for the Union Army. So they're trading in their tattered rags for fresh blue uniforms, and they'll be wearing them. Now, remember that. They're wearing blue overcoats and that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So they also discover the ammunition from General Longstreet's wagon train. Okay? So they're taking as much ammunition as they can haul. And they can't obviously haul it all. So they're taking what they can. So Stuart realizes, we can't stay here. By this time, word has gotten out to the Union forces in Hagerstown. And unfortunately for them, there's no available cavalry to immediately send towards Chambersburg.
Okay.
But they know Stuart is here. They're getting reports of this.
All right.
Alfred Pleasanton has now been dispatched to try to cover the rear, make their way towards Clear Spring, cover the rear in case Stuart leaves by the same route that he approached. All right, Stuart needs to get out of here. He needs to keep moving. So somewhere around 9 o'clock in the morning, this has all happened in 2, 3, 4 hours, the burning of everything. all this has happened in Chambersburg. Stuart saddles his men, and they head east. He has a brief moment, I believe, where he thinks of going by the route that he came. And I don't know if this is a spur-of-the-moment thing or he decides that route could be covered. I don't know. He continues now to the east. Maybe he does decide, I'm going to ride around the Army again. Could be.
Could be.
But he heads east through Fayetteville, up over South Mountain, and on the other side, the Union forces are now getting word he's heading towards Gettysburg.
So this is all along Route 30 today. If you guys
That's right.
are trying to wonder where all the stuff is,
Right.
Just from Chambersburg east on Route 30.
East on Route 30, and he will turn right. There it is. There's a map. He will turn right and head south at Cashtown. Okay. By this time, Pleasanton has been told, "Hey, you're going the wrong direction."
Oh, okay. So the solid line is his route.
That's right.
Okay. I'm trying.
Yeah, and that's available.
Like I know the area you're talking about. I'm like, well, I don't know what the hell this map is. But there we go.
Yeah.
So the solid line, that horseshoe-shaped
line.
line, is the route that Stuart took.
Starts on the lower left, goes north, off to the east, and then south again.
Yeah.
So Pleasanton
ride.
now is in the wrong place. So he is recalled and given orders to head towards Emmitsburg. And from Emmitsburg, then he can turn north or south, Gettysburg, down into Maryland, wherever. Stuart is going to continue south through Fairfield. And when he arrives in Emmitsburg, it's another one of those examples of Union forces just missed him, or he missed them. A portion, I think it was like 4 companies or something, of the 6th Pennsylvania. So this was Rush's Lancers.
Okay.
Have been given orders to go to Gettysburg because they believe Stuart is heading in that direction. So they go to Gettysburg. They leave Emmitsburg just as Stuart is coming in, and they capture some of Rush's Lancers' rear guard.
So he doesn't come to Gettysburg.
No, Stuart does not.
Right. Rush's Lancers do go to Gettysburg.
A portion of them.
Portion.
Mm-hmm.
So the people of Gettysburg are aware of what's going on, right? And they're probably aware of what's going on before Rush's Lancers get there. I'm sure word has spread from Chambersburg. Do you know anything about the reaction of the people of Gettysburg to this incursion into the North?
I don't really. I haven't really looked into that.
Yeah, I've been curious to know what the thought is here. But like you were saying before, later in June of 1863, there is, with Michael Jacobs saying that, people are a little too complacent. I don't think it's something about a gathering storm. It's that quote that I think he's talking about. Your answer to that was, well, it's the boy who cried wolf. And yes, so I would imagine they would be a little more alarmed in 1862 because it's newer. Yeah, right? Like there were rumors before Stuart actually came up here. But I mean, that had to be scary because you hear all these rumors that turn out to not be true. And then, Stuart actually is up here.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, man, this is like... So I would think that by the time of June of 1863, you start hearing this stuff, they've been up here.
Yeah.
So why would you be like, whatever?
It's possible. It's happened before.
Yeah, right.
History repeats itself, right?
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
Although now the big thing is to say, it doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. Please.
Oh, my gosh.
Please. We know it's not the same people in the same uniform. We understand that. God. All right, go ahead.
Anyway. Oh, and something I just want to throw this in there because I forgot to tell you. There had been at least 3 buildings in Chambersburg used as hospitals, and they were loaded with upwards of 400 patients from Antietam.
Oh.
So Stuart paroled, I think, like 280 of them, something like that.
Okay.
So they were in some of the schools and hotels.
So these are Union Union patients that he takes prisoner and then paroles.
Paroles them because he can't.
Right.
He can't take them.
But with this whole goofy parole system, you're on your honor to not fight.
Right. That's right. Right.
So he basically neutralizes them, even if they recover from their wounds.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
So we left. Stuart was passing through Emmitsburg. He captures a courier that has a message going to Rush's Lancers, going to the 6th Pennsylvania. Okay. In that message, Stuart was able to read and glean some information that would be vital to him. There is uncertainty as to where Stuart is or where he's going. Okay? It also alerted Stuart to a larger Union cavalry and infantry force in and around Frederick. Stuart was heading in that direction from Emmitsburg to Frederick. Now he's not going to go to Frederick because he captured this messenger. Okay. So now he will be heading down towards Woodsboro. By this time, Hugh Logan, his scout, isn't doing as much for him. He's not as familiar. But Captain B.S. White, that is part of Stuart's cavalry, is from Poolesville, Maryland. And he is now the scout. So Stuart has men with him who know the roads, know the territory. And White is now leading Stuart's force, trying to evade and elude the Union forces. And Stuart, I think it's very important to understand Stuart's mindset here, where he is planning to go to try to recross the river. Instead of going further, what would be downriver, to try to avoid the main force of the Union Army, which is in and around Maryland, Shepherdstown, Frederick.
Yeah.
Right, okay? Instead of going further to the east, he's going closer to McClellan's army because he believes that's not going to be suspected. Okay? He thinks...
He's got some brass ones.
He does. And he's thinking, he's thinking. And he's believing then that the Northern Army is going to send stronger forces to guard the other fords further to the east.
Sure.
Okay? So Stuart is trying to hug as close as he dares the McClellan's army. So they're making the way down through Woodsboro. Could you give me that map back?
I did. I was going to just ask you for it back because I wanted to.
So Rocky Ridge, Woodsboro, Liberty, which is Liberty Town now, New London, New Market, eventually crossing the Monocacy, ending up in Hyattstown. Okay? So when they are down that far south, what's off to the west? Sugarloaf Mountain.
Good old Sugarloaf.
A big signal station up there. So Stuart knows he can be seen. And keep in mind, this is still the afternoon, evening of the 11th. Pleasanton will arrive in Emmitsburg at sunset. Stuart has already passed through. So nearly missed again.
Oh, there's Sugarloaf. Okay. Yeah, Sugarloaf is amazing because you can see it. If you go up to the Culp's Hill Tower here, it stands out like a sore thumb. Even though this is, we're right near the Appalachians, like the part where Sugarloaf isn't the more mountainous of the region, right? It's, there are mountains, but it's not like, it stands up above everything else is what I'm saying.
You can understand why there's a signal station.
Yeah. I mean, what is that, 40 miles away?
I don't know.
I mean, it's below Frederick. It's below Urbana. It's almost... it basically is like right near White's Ford going into Leesburg.
Right.
So, it's Virginia, that is, for those of you who aren't familiar with all this stuff. That's a good distance away. And we can see it from here.
Yeah.
From a high position.
Right.
Which that's amazing to me.
Yeah.
And it is quite easy to find. Like, it's not like you got to go, okay, you see that one tall one that looks like no. It's the only thing that's up in the air.
Pretty obvious.
Yeah, it is. Okay, go ahead.
So Pleasanton arrived at Mechanicstown, which is Thurmont today, about 8:30 p.m. on the 11th. He will then find out, he is informed Stuart's not that far away. Stuart's only 4 miles away from Pleasanton, while Pleasanton's at Mechanicstown. Mm-hmm. Pleasanton will gamble that Stuart's going to the mouth of the Monocacy to cross the river. So he sends his force there. And keep in mind, Pleasanton, by this point, has already been on the wild goose chase to the west and now recalled back in this direction. So he's got a lot of miles under his belt in less than 24 hours, and his horses are getting run down. Okay. So Pleasanton is gambling. Stuart's going to cross around the Monocacy. Right. Here's a little note I had. Pleasanton's men had ridden or marched 78 miles in 24 hours.
Wow. 78 miles. Oh, my God.
78 miles in 24 hours.
And
so you can understand why his horses are breaking down.
I was going to say, man, yeah. And he's not carrying a Remuda with him or anything. Like, he's got just basic, like, there's no spares, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Remuda is what they call that extra herd of horses.
Is that right?
Well,
I thought it was an island.
No, that's Bermuda. No. I mean, I assume they did back then in the military. I know in the cowboy world, they call it a Remuda.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
You were on the dude ranch. Not
I
me.
went to a dude ranch once. So I know everything about cowboys.
That's right. So Stuart's men are continuing under the leadership of Captain White, who knows the area. All right, so here's where Stuart's deception begins. Passing slightly to the east of Poolesville, they enter a large belt of woods, heavily wooded area. So now they're not in clear view of the signal station. So while they're in the trees, and Lee's brigade is leading the group, followed by Hampton, and then Jones, I believe. No, Hampton's in the rear. Jones is in the middle. Hampton's in the rear. Stuart is back with Hampton because there's some threats from some Union cavalry back there. In fact, the Confederates will charge a small detachment, I believe it is of the 6th Pennsylvania, to gain some more time. Okay.
Quick question. You're mentioning Hampton and everybody. And you also said that this force that he's going up with is a hand-selected contingency of each regiment that he has. Or I'm sorry, of each brigade that he has.
Yes.
Is he also taking the brigade commanders with him?
Yeah, he has Hampton, Jones, and Lee.
So they're physically there. It's
Yes.
not just, okay.
Yeah.
So who's in charge of the cavalry that's left with the army at this point? Not that this is important, so if you don't know the answer.
Lee.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Easy answer.
Fair enough.
Easy answer. Okay, so, and I found it interesting, Stuart has, and this is another one of those things you read different accounts of numbers. I've read 1,000. I've read up to 1,600 to 2,000 horses Stuart has captured in Pennsylvania. The most widely recognized, I believe, is about 1,200 horses he's captured. His own mounts, he's been moving, and so his mounts, they're swapping them out with the fresh ones.
Yeah.
Pelham has done that several times with his artillery. Those horses are broken down and beat from dragging those cannons and limbers around. They swap them out a number of times so the artillery can keep up with the main force. So they're in these trees now, and Captain White finds this abandoned road in these trees, and they make I think the report said a left-hand turn. Regardless, they're now on this unused road again, and there's a few fences they have to take down along the way, but they're out of sight of the Federals on the mountain, and they are now on a direct line towards White's Ferry or White's Ford, where they hope to cross. So Stuart has deceived Pleasanton and the rest of the Federals for that matter, but they're still stretched out and they still have to cross the river to safety. So as Lee is now in the front, his brigade is leading towards the river, and as they break out of the trees, there's what Henry McClellan described as a quarry bluff next to the towpath of the canal and then the river. Okay, so there's this large quarry bluff. and Lee can see the Federal infantry on the bluff. He can see them up there. Lee doesn't expose his position, but he sends back for Stuart. I need you up here to help me make a decision what we need to do here. We have infantry guarding this ford in mass. Stuart says, I'm too busy with this attack in the rear. You need to deal with this yourself, okay? This isn't the first time this has happened. This will happen again at Brandy Station.
Right.
You need to deal with it on Fleetwood. So Lee now plays poker himself. He's trying to bluff the Union position. He's trying to bluff the Union position on the bluff. Okay.
Right.
So he sends a flag of truce with a couple of officers over to the commander, and I think I have that commander's name. Lieutenant Colonel Edwin Biles, no relation to Simone. So they approach, the flag of truce approaches the Federal force, and Lee has told these men, tell them that we have the entire force here. We're going to give them the opportunity to leave, not necessarily surrender to us, but to leave their position, or over the next 10 minutes, whatever, we're going to
gobble you up.
We're going to charge.
Yeah.
And while this is going on, he's pulling up 2 of Pelham's guns. So when the flag of truce comes back, Pelham's guns open up. The Union forces realize, oh, he means business. And as Lee is ready to go, he sees the Union force dispersing and leaving, evacuating and withdrawing from the position.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Good for him.
So Lee now takes his entire force, followed by Jones, and eventually Hampton and the rest of Pelham's guns. Pelham is now guarding the towpath, sweeping up and down the river as necessary, but they safely cross into Virginia. So we learn, though, now Stuart this is essentially the end of his ride. He's now going to be reunited with Lee, but we learn who was guarding that bluff for the Federals. Okay. It was portions of the 99th Pennsylvania and the 40th New York.
Okay, they were down by Devil's Den.
Yep. So the 40th is not there. They're detached guarding other forts. So they've gone. So it's just portions of the 99th. I don't have a roster of the number of men. I'm guessing 300 maybe. I don't know.
Right, because it's not the full regiment.
It's not the full regiment because they are guarding a 4-mile front of the river. So how thin are they?
Very.
It's estimated that there were between 100 and 200 men at the most on that ridge overlooking the ford.
Okay.
And if so it becomes a little more understandable why they decided to pack up and leave.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? So Stuart's ride, his second ride around McClellan's army, is going to come to a conclusion. Mixed results. He certainly has destroyed the depot. He didn't destroy the bridge. He's gathered horses, about 1,200 horses. Alexander Kelly McClure estimates about $250,000 worth of damages to the railroad. He paroled and took out of commission then at least 280 Federal prisoners that were in the hospitals. And probably, he did score a win for building morale for the Confederates.
Sure.
And certainly this is going to be an embarrassment to the Lincoln administration. And it won't be too long afterwards till Lincoln relieves McClellan. So whether this was one of the final nails in the coffin of McClellan or not, I don't want to say, but it didn't help.
Right,
help.
right.
So this is the 1862 Stuart raid.
I can't believe that those Confederates fell for the ruse by the civilians about the bridge. I mean, I really can't believe that.
Well, tit for tat. Lee did it then to the Union force there crossing the river.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
But yeah, I don't know how large that force would have been, but Jones and Stuart didn't have a good relationship anyway. Right. This certainly didn't help.
No. Great point. Yeah. So they don't like each other by this point already.
Right.
And
Jones was given the order to destroy the bridge, and he didn't do it.
He didn't do it. I wonder what that must have been like when he came back empty-handed.
Yeah.
I mean, and those officers that encountered the civilians, they wouldn't go and investigate to make sure?
They did not.
I can't believe that's amazing to me. I mean, whatever. I've never been in that situation, so what do I know?
And could it have been, this needs going back? And I'm not saying this is accurate. I'm just spitballing here, right? Could it be that we know this has to be a fast-moving raid? Do we have time to take their word for it? Or should we go up there and look? Do we have time to do that?
Right.
Because I know Stuart's going to be packing up and leaving soon.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
As we discussed this, folks, and you're watching, if you want to call in, the number is 717-420-1978, 1978. If you have any questions for Tracy about this, but we're about to wrap up, so call in quickly if you do. It's the thing that I find most fascinating about really like hunkering down on one thing, like the Battle of Gettysburg, is that you end up learning more about other things than you expect you would. Like I learned a little bit about the Antietam campaign here, the post battle part of the campaign, through a story about Stuart's raid into PA. And I only care about that because less than a year later, the Confederates are going to come up here and the Battle of Gettysburg will take place. So, because of the Battle of Gettysburg, I've now learned these other things.
And then you can kind of transfer that to a year later. Stuart knows some of these roads and routes up here now.
Yeah. Yes. Of course, he's not here to take advantage of that.
Well, no, but Jones is.
That's true.
Jones is over some of these same. He's guarding the rear.
But he's guarding. That's what I'm going to say. He's guarding the rear.
But he's on some of those same roads he was on less than a year before.
Yeah, but that's not helping Lee.
It's not helping Lee.
No.
Well, it's protecting the.
I mean, but it's not helping Lee know. I mean, he's got other ways to know what's ahead of him,
Right.
like road wise, but still, he's not utilizing Jones, I guess is what I'm saying. All right. Well, Tracy, thank you very much for putting this together and doing this. This is pretty cool. Maybe someday what we'll do is a Chambersburg tour. I know you've brought that up before.
Yeah.
And we're considering. So we have, I don't know if I told you, but we have our September and October Get Out of the Car tours permitted.
Okay.
And so we're going to have them. I don't think we're going to have much of a turnout for September because we only got the permit last week and it's next week. So I'll be surprised if we have 10 people. But October should be a good turnout, I would imagine. And on the October tour, we're going to put it to a vote. Show of hands. Actually, we'll move people to one side or the other of the field. Do we do Get Out of the Car tours next year here in Gettysburg, or do we do Get Out of the Park tours? And Get Out of the Park tours would be a combination of the two, but we would probably keep the Gettysburg tours to about 2, the opening of the season and the close of the season, and then the rest will go elsewhere. So I will let you know based on what the people decide. The Volk.
Put it up to the vote.
Yes, we'll put it up to the vote for the Volk. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. If you're watching on YouTube for that few minutes I gave you for free there, you can watch all of our recording sessions on Patreon over at patreon.com/addressing Gettysburg. You're a patron, Tracy. If you were studying for the guide exam, would you say that being a patron will help broaden your knowledge, your breadth of knowledge?
I think you're looking for every bit of information that you can find.
Absolutely.
So you have a lot more opportunities as a patron to be included in a lot more information.
See, there you go. And that's from a guide. This is from a guide who passed the exam.
Hey, thanks for the $20 bill.
You're very welcome. Next time, don't mention that until we're off the air.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Otherwise, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching, and we will talk to you next time. Okay.
I don't know if you looked at the cover of that. That's a cool picture of Stuart's men in Chambers. Oh, and that was, I didn't mention that. Remember, they had the uniforms on.
Yes.
So that was deception. of Russia's Lancers. They thought it was a Union force because they were still wearing the blue.
Okay.
So, courthouse, Franklin Hall. This is Jacob Hoke's store right here.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right there.
So what? Let me see.
This is Route 30 going this way. That goes to Gettysburg.
Okay. So then, I get it. All right. So where are we? It's hard to do this way. All right. So that's the courthouse, and that's Franklin Hall, and then Jacob Hoke's store is right there.
Right on.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, sir. All right, and that's.
I need to skedaddle.
All right, well,
I have 4
skedaddle
o'clock.
then. And I'm going to end this. Thank you, everybody.